Welcome to NTD Business. I'm Don Ma. So what's happening today? Citigroup on Monday downgraded U.S. stocks. This is in anticipation of a pullback in growth stocks. Tech, for example, is a growth stock, and as well as anticipating a recession in the fourth quarter of the year. The brokerage cut its rating on U.S. stocks to neutral from overweight. Now, overweight means a more positive stance on U.S. stocks, potentially recommending investors to allocate a larger portion of their portfolio to stocks compared to other assets. And neutral, on the other hand, means that the current outlook for U.S. stocks are neither particularly positive nor negative. It suggests a more balanced perspective, indicating that the brokerage does not have a strong preference for buying or selling U.S. stocks at the time. Citigroup warned that growth stocks were set for a pullback as the euphoria around artificial intelligence enters a more digestive phase. S&P 500 has gained around 14.6% so far this year, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq jumped about 31%. It was driven mainly by a handful of tech stocks that was riding on the hype surrounding AI. And moving on, according to Northwestern Mutual's 2023 Planning Progress Study, Americans believe they will need $1.27 million to retire comfortably, which has increased from the $1.25 million reported the previous year. Those with over $1 million in investable assets believe they'll need $3 million for retirement. However, the study reveals that most workers have not saved enough, with the average American having set aside $89,000 towards their retirement goal. It seems like there's a significant disparity between what people believe they'll need for retirement and what they have saved so far. The study also indicates that people expect to work longer before retiring, with the average expected retirement age being 65. Meanwhile, Bankrupt SVB Financial Group has sued the U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corp. This is to recover the $1.93 billion that the regulator seized while it took over Silicon Valley Bank in March. This is according to a filing in a bankruptcy court on Sunday. The group said inability to access the funds was affecting its reorganization because the money should be generating more than $100 million in annual interest. And without that, it might have to seek costly and uncertain debtor-in-possession financing. The FDIC has said that Silicon Valley Bank's failure drained its insurance fund by $16 billion, and it is legally able to hold the seized funds while it determines SVB Financial's share of the rescue costs. In May, a U.S. bankruptcy judge had ordered the FDIC to return $10 million in seized tax refund checks to SVB Financial. Silicon Valley Bank collapsed in March and led to the failure of two other regional banks. And now just a quick update on Meta Platform's Twitter rival app Threads. It crossed 100 million signups within 5 days of launch. This is according to CEO Mark Zuckerberg on Monday. Threads has now dethroned ChatGPT as the fastest growing online platform to hit 100 million users. And Zuckerberg said in a Threads post that that's mostly organic demand. He said, quote, "We haven't even turned on many promotions yet." Now on to some movie news. To start your week off, here's today's Hollywood Minute.
We imagine a future, and our imaginings horrify us.
Oppenheimer writer-director Christopher Nolan says his film speaks to our relationship with technology, and that people he talks with in the tech sector compare the Manhattan Project with the current growth of artificial intelligence.
They see what they're doing as their Oppenheimer moment, and they look to his story to give some kind of guidance as to how the relationship between science, technology, and government and society should function. And I don't know whether Oppenheimer's story has answers to that. It certainly raises the questions, and in a way that I think we will find quite chilling.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared.
Oppenheimer opens July 21st.
We meet again.
Get ready for more Elektra. The Hollywood Reporter and Variety report, Jennifer Garner is returning to the role she played in 2003's Daredevil and 2005's Elektra. Garner reportedly will pick up her signature sigh for Deadpool 3, currently set to open next May.
And finally, popular artificial intelligence bot ChatGPT is being sued. Some big names in the entertainment industry are bringing a class action lawsuit against the company behind ChatGPT. And here with me is the patent professor, John Rizvi. He's a registered patent attorney and adjunct professor of patent law at Nova Southeastern Law School in Florida. So, John, it seems like so many people right now are filing class action lawsuits against ChatGPT and openAI. I think the latest and most prominent being the stand-up comedian Sarah Silverman. There were a number of authors as well in the previous week. They're all suing openAI for using their content without permission to train their artificial intelligence language models. So, John, can you tell us if there's any merit to the suits?
Yeah, well, there certainly is. So this is not something I expect to be dismissed on like a summary judgment motion or anything like that. There's certainly merit. An owner of intellectual property, particularly copyrights, they have the right to determine who they give permission to for using that work, when they give permission, and the manner in which that work is used. So the central issue here is that these authors are claiming that the only way that ChatGPT is able to provide such a detailed summary of their books is if they have accessed the complete work. And of course, I think the case is going to turn on where ChatGPT is getting that information and what databases they're using. Because their claim is going to be like, hey, we're not going to the original work, we're simply accessing the internet database, but they're not revealing their sources, and that's problematic.
Yeah, I think some of the authors are alleging that ChatGPT is data scraping thousands of their books and then reusing that data. And I want to know, they're suing for copyright infringement. Is openAI infringing on copyright simply by using their content?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's no permission given, particularly, then that's copyright infringement. And a lot of people find that surprising because, for example, if you and I buy a copy of a book or properly borrow one from the library or whatever, obtain a copy, read the book, and write a summary, at some point along the line, there has been a license provided to someone. And there's a first sale doctrine that allows us to go ahead and summarize that book. And people may ask, well, what's the difference between you and I reading a book and then summarizing it and putting our summary, even a detailed summary online, versus ChatGPT? So the difference is that there's at no point has permission been given to openAI, the company that created ChatGPT, to scrape these books and use that underlying information.
What about this argument? Isn't use of data from the public domain considered fair use?
So fair use is certainly a defense to copyright infringement. One of the major factors for fair use is whether the use is of a commercial intent or if it's of a nonprofit intent. So in the past, when there's a Supreme Court decided a case on Sony VHS cassettes and whether homeowners, individual consumers, had the right to record shows and watch them later on. And that was permitted under fair use. But a big factor was that the consumer was not going to sell or in any way profit from recording a TV show. They're going to record it and watch it themselves. It was used for time shifting and there's no profit incentive. ChatGPT is certainly, that's not the case. They have models charging monthly fees and they're valued, I believe, at the latest value is like $29 billion based on the profit that they're making. So it's going to be a stretch to qualify under fair use.
So then, by that logic, is openAI violating the rights of millions of internet users because it's using people's social media comments, posts, blog posts, etc.?
Yeah, in fact, it's been said that they may very well be the biggest copyright infringer in the history of the world. I mean, like never has there been such a massive wholesale possible infringement of rights of authors as ChatGPT potentially presents. And it's going to come down to, again, it's going to be an evidence play in the end, is how likely, is how much they're going to be able to reveal as to their databases. And their claim, of course, their strongest defense is going to be, we are not copying from the original work. itself, but we're scraping, internet databases on millions, billions of potential consumers and compiling something based on that, not a violation of the original author's work. I think the detail in the summary is going to be a big factor. And then in order to persuade, I think, anyone of their claim that they're not copying, they're going to have to reveal their methodology and their databases. And that, in effect, could be, that could be the death of OpenAI, because even if they win this case, if they reveal their methodology and their database, then they've essentially given away their proprietary edge to claim that they have some kind of unique way of providing these answers. The biggest risk, I think, for ChatGPT is not particularly this case, but if they're forced to reveal their methodology and their database, then it's going to open the door for copycat AI platforms. That's going to be the real competitive risk to ChatGPT, is how are they going to maintain their edge and be able to maintain their fees if they no longer can claim that they have a unique proprietary system for providing their answers.
So do you think that's how this a lawsuit will play out in the end? What, is there going to be like a fine type of scenario?
If I were advising, I think the best possible outcome would be a confidential settlement where ChatGPT could avoid revealing their proprietary methods and their database and keep their trade secrets a trade secret that would allow them to continue. I just don't know the economics of such a settlement, being that the large scale of potential infringement that could be taking place.
I mean, how is this going to be how is it going to be balanced between OpenAI and users, authors, whoever? Because I'm sure OpenAI will want to continue training its AI models. So how is this going to work?
Yeah, so I think essentially long term, there's just the existing copyright laws are not really. They're being stretched to accommodate new technology that was never envisioned. So I certainly feel that long term, the solution is going to end up becoming new legislation, new laws that are particularly directed towards AI. There's just no way. There's a limit to how long the existing laws can continue to be used for this purpose.
And another question I have is, if I post something on social media, do I have the rights to that post, or do the companies have the rights to the post? And when ChatGPT uses that content, are they infringing the social media company's rights or my rights?
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on the platform you use. Sometimes as a end user agreement to using that platform, you give up rights to that content to the company. Now, this is a completely different scenario in that you are not engaging in any sort of contract with ChatGPT. You may be giving rights up to a particular company, be it Facebook or an online chat. Now, if ChatGPT is scouring the internet using this data, you've never provided any type of agreement or license to them, and there is a completely separate class action lawsuit, completely not related to copyright infringement, that's actually related to data privacy that is currently ongoing as well, that OpenAI is facing. But both of these lawsuits pose significant risks to them. But we've seen this before. Anytime there's a massive new change in technology, the laws are scrambling to catch up. We saw the same thing happening with when Uber first came about with ride sharing, the ride sharing platform. There's all kinds of lawsuits throughout the country by the taxi cab industry trying to prevent Uber from going forward. So there's going to be a lot of this uncertainty until there's legislation that kind of helps settle the law and provide some guidance to copyright attorneys like myself.
What do you think about this scenario? In the future, ChatGPT, OpenAI will pay data holders to use their data, and both parties will be happy.
That's a possibility. I think ultimately any solution is going to require some sort of compensation for the content creators, and ultimately, and that's fine if there ends up being a payment to the intermediary companies, but then ultimately, I think in order for the solution to be set and be I guess acceptable to everyone, there has to be some compensation for the ultimate author themselves.
Do we have any precedent to this, any similarities in the past to what we're seeing right now?
There has never been this sort of wholesale allegations of copyright infringement on this scale. I mean, this certainly is going to be the biggest copyright infringement in the history of the world, if in fact the case does go through and to a decision. As I said, my gut feeling is that in order for ChatGPT to survive and openAI to continue, there would have to be some sort of a settlement to prevent the release of their confidential proprietary databases and whatever methods that are used.
And I would imagine, because the stand-up comedian Sarah Silverman, she's pretty prominent in the entertainment world. If more prominent people stand up and accuse ChatGPT of using their content without permission, I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on OpenAI.
Pressure, and not just from a legal standpoint, but certainly in the court of public opinion, there's, certainly it's going to have a huge impact. And ultimately, that's going to impact the legislation that gets passed as well. So, because if enough people see this as a violation of individual authors' rights and a violation of those that create the creative content, then the pendulum's going to swing, and there's going to be legislation that kind of puts a stop to a limit on what AI can do and what data they can scrape without having to compensate the creators of the content.
Yeah, I mean, AI is not going to stop developing, in my opinion. So there has to be some solution made between copyright holders and companies like OpenAI, right?
100%, 100%. I mean, the status quo cannot continue, and I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg as far as the lawsuits that not just OpenAI is facing, but that other AI platforms are going to face coming forward. I mean, this is just the first of many that are going to be coming forward.
All right, thank you so much for the discussion today, John. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Terrific. Pleasure is all mine.